Hello there. So, today, unfortunately, I've been having a little bit of a headache. So, I am going to use my handy dandy niche interest to examine why exactly I might be having a headache. Granted, of course, it's dehydration. I need to drink a lot more water. But I'm going to examine your headache and my headache using the phrenology chart. So, my headache in particular is located very much right about here above my left eye, and it's also at the very tip of the back of my skull right here. Just these 2 points, and then it kind of radiates like here. It's very dulling, it's very numbing, and it kills my motivation. So, there's basically something interesting to note before we begin, is that the brain doesn't have any pain receptors. So your brain is never the one truly hurting you. There is a membrane around your brain called the dura, I believe, or the duma, I can't quite remember. And that membrane it doesn't like it when the brain is either expanding or contracting. So for example, whenever you have a caffeine addiction, which can be characterized as having severe migraines when you don't have your caffeine fix, your veins are starting to constrict, and that'll add pressure to the duma or the dura, which then causes a headache or a migraine because you're starting to feel contact with that sensitive membrane. So with that out of the way, we're now going to begin with our phrenology chart, which I find to be quite interesting. So in my case, my headache is very much right here in my sense of individuality. There is a bump here, mostly because it's just kind of like there's an indent here and then there's a bump here, which means that my individuality is just a little too strong. And then that's about it. Honestly, it's like right where the individuality is, like right here. And then as for back here, where my headache is also located, this is where my conscientiousness and my firmness are located. So it just looks like I'm too conscientious and firm of a person when it comes to my headache. It's just those values are just, I don't compromise on those values, which is why I get such a headache. Now, I'm going to be examining this chart as I feel for your headache as well. So tell me, this is the frontal lobe of your brain. These are, I believe, the parietal lobes of your brain, the sides of your brain. I forgot where the temporal lobe of your brain is. The occipital lobe is at the base of your head. I'm trying to remember where the temporal brain is. But anyways, where exactly is your headache located? Okay, so it's right about here. Okay, and here. Okay. If I add pressure to it, does it help it a bit? Okay, interesting. I'm going to apply pressure to both then. Give you a little bit of a head massage. Just to apply a little bit of relief to it. They seem to be a bit lifted, but if it was recessed, you would also feel a sense of headache, maybe because of the lack of value that is wanting within that quality. This is very, 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 just fun. Personality traits according to your headache. So, is there anywhere else that your headache is hurting you? Is it kind of radiating anywhere by chance? Yeah, so for example, I have it here and here. If yours is kind of like on the sides, each section of the head actually represents a different facet of why your head might be hurting you. So here it might be light sensitivity, dehydration, which is what is actually the problem in my case. And then what else? I forgot. And then on the parietal lobes, it might be like a nerve blockage where it's like your shoulders might be tight or tense, or there might be something kind of like blocking the nerve. But yeah, so is there anywhere else by chance? Like right here, kind of like an ice pick. Okay, let me feel this one out too. Okay, interesting. Okay. Okay, well, according to where you told me your headache is located, if it's right about here, and then on these sides of your head, which are pretty much the same spot but just kind of mirrored, I'm going to look at my chart and tell you what exactly, or what traits are bothering you exactly. All of the traits that all of the spots that we've felt were lifted, which means that you have an abundance of that trait. So those traits might be causing you to have a headache. So it would be best to sort of set aside activities or hobbies or preoccupations that reflect those qualities, and instead kind of put your mind towards things that are more peaceful, things that are a bit more less stimulating. So where we found this spot here, according to your headache, so right about here, this is your sense of human nature. So your human nature is your ability to perceive others' motives, including your own. So this is the ability to kind of put yourself in other people's shoes. A lot of people will weaponize empathy as this kind of concept where they're the most empathetic person because they project their own motives and interpretations onto others and make it this big deal. They're not actually empathetic people. They're just very nerdy and obsessed with things that don't actually exist. So when it comes to human nature, oftentimes the big actual problem with that is when there are people who might be crossing your boundaries, like your actual boundaries, for example, expecting you to be ultra sensitive around them, but yet it almost seems like you can never reach that level, and then they snap at you for any little thing and you have to kind of carry that brunt in your nervous system. Or people who might say things that aren't necessarily pleasant, and you kind of have to just kind of absorb that in your nervous system as well. And when I say pleasant, I mean like an actual interaction between people, not necessarily something broad like, oh, what is the condition in Sri Lanka? Kind of like the American Psycho quote. But anyways, something to maybe resolve this headache that you're feeling right here is just kind of not necessarily thinking about other people's motivations or your ability to kind of understand, but instead of understanding, you don't do the opposite, which is then constantly projecting this lack of understanding onto them. Instead, what you do is you let apples lie where they are. So you basically just psychologically remove yourself from the situation, and you kind of make yourself into this sort of phantasm presence, this ghostly presence, who is both there but also kind of content, not really registering anything. There is no need for your mind to work or be active. You just sort of feel like a bird kind of flying above the situation. Take on a bird's eye point of view as opposed to trying to assess things in this very chess-like way. And as for the other quality, which was located right about there, I'm going to feel for it. Okay. So that is your sublimity. Your sublimity is your love of the grandeur. Things that are beautiful, things that might have a lot of depth to them, things that are very representative and ideal. I would say perhaps give this a little bit of a break. There's a reason why a lot of European monarchs, such as Marie Antoinette, which is a very popular and famous example, would take a break from their palace in Versailles or take a break from their, you know, very grand life and instead escape into the countryside and just enjoy their cottage. And oftentimes they valued that experience far more than they liked the grandeur of living in a palace. Mostly because it's just so simple, cozy, lovely, and down to earth. So although there is nothing wrong with loving something very beautiful, I would say try to simplify things whenever they start to overwhelm you. There's this concept of Thoreauvian living, which I think is really sweet, where you basically try to remove yourself from all technology, you remove yourself from all elements of society, almost kind of like a very famous man who I cannot mention, I suppose, who recently passed away and was very much known for not liking the technological world and running to a cabin, I believe, in Montana, if not Idaho, I forgot actually, it's been a while, and then just sort of created a very interesting manifesto. Not necessarily doing that, of course, I would never advocate for that, but kind of taking on this Thoreauvian living where you remove yourself from the society and just get back to that which matters, the grounded roots. Unfortunately for the aforementioned individual, he was a little too familiar with the human nature bubble, which probably caused him a lot of headaches. And he did not remedy those headaches quite well. Not well at all. But I hope you enjoyed this assessment. If you feel like we need to delve a little deeper into your headache to see which parts might be hurting your head, granted, of course, look for the biological reasons as well. Hydration, perhaps nerve tension, things that are physically doing it, but we can also look at the chart and see, the phrenology chart, and see what personalities we can kind of assess, or personality traits we can assess, trying to calm it down too. So, with that in mind, I hope you enjoyed, and take care.